The mid-range, everyone's favorite price point, that's for sure. It can separate the men from the boys, the ladies from the girls, that's for sure. Can you pick the right ones? That's the question every single year. There's always a couple in all positions that go well. There's always a couple that don't go well. They either lose money or they plod, and they kind of annoy you because you haven't selected the cashy that's made a bit more cash to get this mid-price guy, and it stopped you from going for a top gun. If it works out perfectly for you, that means you're ahead of the game. And that in there lies the big risk with the mid-price guys. And we're going from a 50 average all the way down to a 34 average. That's what 455K, I should say, go all the way up through 667, which is basically where Ruben Cotter is. And we kick it off with Maxi King at a 49.7 average, a 657K. And the reason I did throw him on this list is because he does have times where he does beat that average, but he has more help this year. Hughes, another year older. You've got Sitilli coming over, and you've got Tom Amone as well coming over from the Super League. So personally with that, it's hard to expect anything different, anything higher than that. So I'm expecting more of the same from Maxi King and someone that you shouldn't jump into, in my opinion. And the reason why we've gone for sort of 33 and below as the price point that we're looking at for the cash cows is because you're looking at those players with more chance of having sort of close to that 10 points of value. And there's a lot of people on this mid-price list, so I didn't want to make the video too long either, that's for sure. And the cash cow one's too short because there's not a lot in that sort of 350 and below. So 450 odd it is. And I wanted to actually put, there's four guys just a tick under 450 that I think are all very similar, and you might want to pick one of them. So I just thought it'd be best to talk about them all in one rather than separating them between this video and the cashies video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel or to the podcast, guys, jump in and do that. All the podcast stuff is out a little bit earlier than the videos, so go and give that a try if you like as well. I appreciate that. In the slightest, if you do, there's obviously ads on both of them. That's a good way to support me, is just to watching or listening to my content, and you can skip them on podcasts as well. There's obviously something you can do compared to a lot of the YouTube stuff. So up to you on that front. Nat Butcher. Now it gets juicy. There's a lot of guys in this list, so make sure you do stick around. We're going from the top price all the way to the cheaper guys. Nat Butcher has the duel. All the talk says that Radley's going to go back to 13. At the moment, again, we don't know at this point, but we will find out over the next few weeks for sure. And we do have trial teams next week, so I'm going to try and get as many videos out for fantasy on all these guys as quickly as possible, as quickly as my hands type, that's for sure, and get analysing. Done all the mids, we need to get into all the others very, very shortly. But Nat, very interesting as a price reaction because he has been an over a 50 guy before. I personally have him scoring between 48 and 53 if he gets a starting edge position. And that's where the roll reaction is good. A consistency of 8, a confidence level for me at 8 becomes very, very interesting. Ooh, sneaky James Fisher-Harris down there, which everyone is talking about right now. But with Nat, if he gets the right edge spot, then it gets interesting. They've lost 2 middles, so does Radley go to lock? That's the big question mark. There's a risk he could lose a spot again for sure. To a Radley type, there's a little bit of word around that, Wong might be fighting for a starting spot. Is he going to be in the 17th? There's all these different things as well. He obviously struggled last year, and we had a lot of issues with Roosters' edges last year with Sitilli, who is going to take some minutes from someone in that Dogs pack, which is going to be scary if you're looking at guys like Preston and the like, which we'll get into in the next lot of gun videos for the edges. And a big thanks to all you guys for checking out the mid guns and the hooking videos so far. I appreciate that. If Radley does move, Butch has a career average of 52.7 and 53.6. Last year on the edge across his 53.6 last year and 55.8 if you took out the 54-minute game and you just went up to big minutes. So I think we'll keep the 54 one in just to make that a little bit easier and a little bit safer. And that's 5 to sort of 6 points of value just on those two stats alone, the career and obviously last year in that one. And he became very consistent last year compared to other years as well. 44 tackles, 2.6 misses is a big win. It's 39 points in tackles alone before he runs a footy or does anything like that. So great news for Butcher potential buyers is that number there, the consistency that he can have. So it's super interesting pick in my opinion if we get the go ahead that Radley is back to lock and has the dual position also. No one's spoken about him so far. Not many anyway. That's why he's a low ownership. I think Butcher is a really good selection if he gets that edge spot and you know you're going to get out of him. The only real issue I see is the potential for him to lose his spot or lose some minutes, which can happen with a lot of people. There's not too many that you go, oh, they're locked into massive minutes, unless there are guys that have been there for a long time. And there aren't too many of those guys that have some type of fantasy value. That is for sure. And that is interesting. All right, let's get into the big dog. James Fisher-Harris, he's a 600K. 45 was the average last year, and the price reaction is pretty solid. Moving to a new team from Panthers to the Wars. How much did they need him as a big minute guy at Panthers compared to how much they're going to need him as a forward at the Wars? They've got Barnett, who is a big minute guy, and we just spoke about him in the last video. They've also had the loss now of Tokel Harris. So there's a big minute role. And they were kind of filling that with Dylan Walker last year. Now, Aaron Clark comes over as well. Are both those guys going to be big minute guys? Do they play a similar role to what James Fisher-Harris does? No. Barnett is that one. Can they have two big minute props? That's the big question mark. Edges are fairly well sewn up. Looks like Ford's moved into the middle now as well. He may play a little bit of edge, but you've got Niokore in there, taking a chunk of those minutes as well. And just what do they do on that left edge is going to be the question there as well. But if we're moving to the prop, we do need to think about the whole team and go back and then check out that Warriors video as well. We spoke fairly heavily about their pack and what they can do, but they're still trying to work things out. Under their coach they've had for a couple of years now, they're still building. Fisher-Harris brings something that a little bit different. 48 to 53 is what I'm expecting to begin this season. Let's get into the numbers. He straight up, he had 2 injury-affected games last year, 24 and 3 minutes, which is something to note as well, that there's a couple of injuries that can frustrate owners. But that bumped him straight up to a 50 average last year in the 51 minutes. In the new team, is there more minutes available? Right? So if you're looking at that there, if he was just to play 51 minutes, we should expect somewhere near the 50 mark. Yes, that PPM could change. More than likely, it could change down. I doubt he goes over a 1 PPM. At this stage of his career, you would have expected sort of the last few years to probably be over that if he was to go over the 1 ppm. But as a career 50 average in 55 minutes at prop when he does play over 30 minutes. So there's obviously games, the injuries and all the rest where he has the one stint or whatever it is. But 50 average in 55 minutes is probably what we can expect with a slightly worse PPM than what he did have last year. So that is something to look at. Is a 50 average enough for you to buy him in your side with a buy, BYE, in round 5 and no origin? Is he someone that you could just slot into your team, stick solid with, and be happy with? That's the big question. Is there more minutes available? Let's look at the last 3 years. 2024, he was 50 in 51 minutes and 58.3 in 60 minutes when he did hit over the 50 mark. Is he going to play over 50 minutes more often for the Wars? And if he does, that's a pretty tasty 13 points of value if he got up to 60 minutes. But again, that PPM is almost at 1 in 60 minutes. Does that change at a different team? 2023, it wasn't so pretty. So 2024 numbers are really, really terrific. Thankfully, he does have that little bit of a drop with the 2 injury games. But 43.6 was the average in 49 minutes in 2023. And a 47.4 in 53.3 minutes when, if you're taking out some injury stuff as well. And he did seem a bit busted through 2023. That was a time where people did jump on through that midsection and he had a really tough time of it. So can we look at that one as a clear indication on what could happen? Look, it's something that you do need to take stock of and take note of. But you do look at 2022, it's a little bit better than that. So that's kind of the in-between year. And it's probably the safer set of numbers to have a look at. With a 49 average in 52.4 minutes. And then when he got up to 57.5 minutes, not as good as what it was in 2024 at 51.7. So if you do expect him somewhere near the 55 minutes it's somewhat of solid value there, near that 50 mark as an average. If you think he gets closer to the 60-minute range, then I definitely think he can be a 55 guy and have about 10 points of value. And at 55, he would be a keeper in your final 17. So there would be no reason why you would need to sell him apart from injury, really. So that's pretty enticing. And I know that's a good set of numbers for people to look at. It's like, oh, if I can get him over 50, he's a guy that I can hold for the season and not have Origin. Misses the 3 games through buys, and that would be all if he was to lock in that time. And he's going to be a very important player. It's not like he's 31, 32 yet. He's 29. Similar age to guys like Isaiah Yeo. And we know what Isaiah Yeo's doing right now, and we saw what Fisher did last year as well. He was tremendous. Now, I think it is super reasonable to think the Fish will play 50 to 55 minutes at the Wars. He did, 51 minutes a game at the Panthers, and they probably need him more at the Warriors. So, again, we don't know all this exactly because it is a new team. Hopefully Webster can come out and tell us some of these stuff, but we're unsure at this time. So this puts him 5 to 8 points undervalued, in my opinion, on last year's numbers, and less value on the 2 years previous numbers, unfortunately. So that's the kind of question. If he plays as well as last year, you don't have to worry about trying to get him up to 60 minutes, which would be good. It'd be gravy if he does. If the numbers look more like 2023 and 2022, you probably want 60 minutes to cover his injury risk also. Yeah, there was 2 last year. Overall, a good pick with low downside. The question is just how good. And the mid position is super stacked. Is he the guy that you want in your side? Fisher Harris is at the same price as Stefano Utoikamanu. I personally like Fisher Harris more than I do Stefano. They both have an early buy, round 2 and round 5. So it doesn't change too much. And I think Fish would be the way to go. But a lot of people are super excited about Stefano. And rightly so. He moves to the Storm system. But it feels like there's a lot more questions than answers with Stefano compared to the numbers and what they say for Fish and the potential for a little bit extra on the minute side, which Stefano, we are unsure on that front. So I have him at a lower consistency rating, definitely, because he's been so up and down. Great game, poor game. Great game, poor game, poor game, poor game, great game. He's like that. I think the price is fair. He should be the main guy, but he was already, And when you got the Panthers, in their situation, it was Isaiah Yeo 80 minutes in 13. With the Tigers, they didn't have that guy, and Stefano was the bigger minute guy. Has some upside for sure. Plenty of downside on his starting price, I think, and with that early buy as well. Because if it doesn't go perfectly well in round 1 or round 3, then that's a tough 3 rounds, to be honest. To miss game, average game, and a good game, it makes it tough. But I have him between 44 and 49. I still think there is a bump, and I'll explain why. He already averaged 50 minutes last year. That's the tough one. He had low tackle numbers, 27.5 to 2 misses, and that just is a big reason why the consistency is a little bit down. He should definitely improve under Bellamy and a better team, but that is narrative. If the meters gained goes up, then it should be tackle break and offload season. As soon as that happens in his games, it goes up dramatically. But we need to see the improvement, as he's definitely plotted for 2 years at the Tigers. I personally would like to see a trial, but I'm unsure how much it will help my decision-making personally. The buy round 2 means you can watch, I think, especially with a team that you may be looking at someone like Munster, you may be looking at Howarth, you may be looking at Pappy, Grant. There's a lot there, a lot of guys to look at. What's funny is this whole thing is a narrative base, which has hurt us with Stefano and others in the past. Whereas Fish, if you're comparing above at the same price, has clear statistical reason to improve on his starting price. Can you see Stefano getting more than 50 minutes? Right? If that's the case, again, it's narrative, that's statistical. Whereas the rest, him improving, all that kind of stuff, it's big. It's a big narrative. And how often have we seen middles, props, I should say, at the Storm playing massive minutes? Apart from that 13 role, Josh King, Trent Liero, it's been a lower minute situation. You never really saw Christian Welch play massive minutes, 60 plus. Wasn't very consistent. Interesting 2 players anyway. Thanks for listening and watching so far. You're all legends. Thank you very much. Lindsay Smith, 44.4 was his average last year. 600k is where he's at as well. Haven't written too much on him just because the minutes, it's tough to see that increasing, and the PPM isn't as close to a Fish, for example. 44.8 in the 51.3 minutes, mixing bench and start last year. He actually had 38.7 in 50 minutes as a starter with 1 try in the 6 games. So wild that was lower than the bench starts, and we're likely to see him in the starting side, the starting 13. So hard to be confident off that for sure. 44 in 48 minutes off the bench. He's a great player. He definitely has a chance to improve. He made the Aussie team last year in the off season, which is awesome for his confidence, but I think it's a very, very risky pick, Lindsay Smith. Just because when I say risky, he could just sit at 44, 43, and his consistency's fine, but we want a little bit of upside potential, which Stefano and Fisher Harris does, and Lindsay Smith is a bit more of a yo type in just accumulating stats, and less about the tackle breaks and offloads and scoring tries and stuff, which you need the minutes for, which Isaiah Yeo does. That's Lindsay Smith. Victor Radley, he's been talked about a lot, so let's delve in. He has to play lock to be relevant, in my opinion. His edge numbers are not very good. That's for sure. If he isn't there, then don't bother. He averaged 47 and 44 the last 2 years in 72 and 70 minutes. So you look at that alone, you're like, wow, that's a lot of minutes, right? He does average 51.1 in 80-minute games or close to, but it is hard to lock that in each and every week. And 51.1 is still only 6.3 points of value. With the dual, yes. But if you're banking on a guy like this with downside risk, is it worth 6 points of value? I'm not sure. For you guys, it's not for me. That's for sure. He does have lower minute games sometimes. There's sin bin risk, there's injury risk. All that kind of stuff has to be part of it when the upside isn't tremendously high. If you want to go for a guy with that is risky, you need to have upside percentage. It needs to be worth the downside percentage. Personally, for me, it's not, but I do think for some people it will be if he's at 13 and playing massive minutes. Is that going to happen though? And then we look at someone like Nafahu White. Where does that fit in for him? If Radley's big minutes on the middle, if you've got guys like Crichton playing 80 minutes and Nat Butcher getting close to 80 minutes, is that going to happen in itself? And then where does the minutes come for guys like Nafahu White, who are New Zealand reps? A 13 as well. So it's going to be an interesting situation. They had so many forwards last year. You got Siua Wong that can come in as well. Egan Butcher to play some time in there. There's a lot of players that on this list that can have opportunities as well. That can hurt guys like Radley, like Butcher. As much as I liked Butcher there, there's risk to him as well. So for me, it's a pass. There's not much room for improvement apart from that 6 points of value, but that's in 80-minute games. So tough. Dylan Walker. I didn't write much on him for clear reason. Here we go. 41 average in 64 minutes at lock. He's priced at 42.5. And again, when I say price tag, guys, this 568K equals 42.5 average. So that's what that means. And if we think they can get to a 50 average, that means they can get up to 670K. 100K in value can be increased to get to a 50 average. If he averaged 50 for a while, depending on how consistent it is, it should take 5 to 7 weeks to get to that point of hitting 50 every week. That's how it would work. So I can't see that improving at all with Aaron Clark coming over. The games where he played those big minutes, they had like a Jazz Tavanga who could play some minutes there and some 9, some middle, all that kind of stuff. So with Clark there, I see, I don't see much. He plays better in less minutes. To be honest with you, his PPM's better. So it's a pass. Corey Horsburgh, much more fun pick. These are the guys you want to look at personally. With guys like this, you're looking at them being keepers in the past, and that's big with Corey Horsburgh. He's done this before. Tick. Beautiful. The price is fair. He didn't play a lot of games last year, but he still averaged 40.6, so that shows a lot. The roll reaction, if it's a prop, good. If it's a 13, amazing. We would absolutely love that. I'm not sure if they'd move Smithies, but it's something to think about if he played 20 minutes or so at lock and Smithies can play 60 minutes. I think with Corey Horsburgh back in the good books, him and Ricky had a bit of a falling out last year. that he could play some time at 13 and mix that with some prop and get some decent minutes. But again, that's all question marks. We need to hear from Ricky himself. We know he changes plenty, and we'd like to see where he lines up in the trials, Mr. Corey Horsburgh. Some people are thinking he'll play 50, 60 off the bench. I think we need him to start to see those 50 minutes or so. Anyway, let's get into the numbers. I do have him at 41 to 46 in a first 5-round expectation, which is a bit of value for sure. But the 5 games last year, he played 43.4 minutes, which was up over a 0.9 ppm. That means points per minute, guys, if you're newer to the game. That's really good numbers. Anything near 1 for a middle is great. Obviously means they don't have to be on the park for as long. And if things go wrong, they're usually scoring pretty quickly, which is awesome. He has a 55.3 average in 61.7 minutes in 2023. So this alone means we have to delve in, right? Because he has Top Gun status in a previous year. He does average 59 at lock in 67 minutes. Again, highlighting his ability to score really well. 59, 67. Does he play prop with Smithies there now? Probably. I think that's how it has to work. Him and Ricky have sorted things out, hopefully. Only 6 games of prop. In his career, he's had 2 tries in that time, which is a bit rough to analyze. But 51.2 and 48.7. It's so good. It's so impressive at over 1 ppm, closer to 1.05, 1.1, which is hectic. And him priced at 40, if you get anywhere near 50 minutes, take away those tries, 50, a couple of extra minutes, sits him pretty close to that 50 mark, which is great. And then if something happens mid-game, he can move to the edge. We've seen him play on the edge in times in 23. If Smithies is injured, he'll go straight to 13. There's a lot of good things to like about Horsburgh. I've seen him in a few teams, and I don't mind it. I don't think there's much of a downside apart from him and Ricky, button heads, having fist fights again. But, yeah, let's keep going. 44.4 in 47.4 minutes off bench in his career. So there's 4 points of value if he was to get a tick under 50 minutes. So if you can get over 50, then it's happy days. But the risky question is, will that happen? Watch this space, that's for sure. And have a look at trial. We've got team list, I think, next week for first trial. And last year, first trial was bigger than second trial in terms of all the guns setting up, close to what they're going to see. I think there was a few teams that chose the second week to do it instead of the first. But yeah, it's very interesting, that's for sure. All right, let's go to Liam Henry, 542K. With the edge, he was spectacular last year. I ended up not having him in fantasy, had him in Supercoach, and he did a great job until he got that head knock, I think in round 7 or something like that, whatever it was. But the price for him, it's fair, and I do expect a slight improvement in his role with Fisher-Harris leaving. But we have Fisher-Harris leaving right in the spot that he would play, but we do have Scott Sorensen likely moving to edge, with Isaiah Papali'i coming in to the left edge. Did I say moving to the edge? Moving from the edge into the middle, and IPAP going to the left edge. In that scenario, it's probably a slight improvement. We got 51 minutes a game that Fish was leaving, and I doubt Sorensen plays the 51. So it's about 10, I think, that needs to be distributed between a couple of guys, and I do expect Liam Henry to cop a little bit of that. We've got Garner to think about as well. There's so much in this pack still, which can cause issues. And, Sorensen missed a fair few games last year and stuff, so it allowed guys like Henry to play the odd game on the edge as well in big minutes. So for Liam Henry, he was 37 in 33.5 minutes off the bench last year, which is just freak behavior. So we have to look at these guys that have an over 1 ppm. He's likely going to be on the bench again, but will it be more minutes? Played a few games on the edge, like I said. He will be expected to do that, I think, at times as well. Given he won't be in Origin, there's going to be opportunities where he can step up in certain times like that with Liam Martin out and the like. He has a 54 average in 41 minutes when he got the extras, which is crazy. 4 games, 2 tries in that one. Bloke just needs more minutes to be a gun. And can he get it? It's going to be the big question. I can only realistically see him getting an extra 5 minutes personally to average close to the sort of 40 to 43 mark in minutes, with Sorensen moving to bench, Papa coming in. If it got closer to that 51 mark that the Smith played, then it's all in Henry. But I will have to watch and see first, because I doubt that's going to happen. It's probably like a 20% chance, which is where I have the 3-game upside at 20%. And I definitely think there's a chance that he stays at the same sort of minutes in the mid-30s, and therefore he's a tick under a 40 average guy at the start, and that's where the downside is. I have him at a 38 to 43 to kick off the first 5 rounds for Liam Henry, but a guy that needs to be put on notice, because if Lindsay Smith is in there with good minutes, there would be space, if he got injured or something, for Liam Henry to come in and do a great job. Toby Couchman, an interesting fellow to look at. There's some chatter around that he's in that starting prop role right now. They've got Emre Gula coming over as well. There is so much to think about with him, and we'll speak about Gula in the cheapies video there. But they have so many guys. When you've got the edges, pretty well sewn up with guys like Leilua and Jaden Sewer. You've got Raymond Faitala-Mariner that can play some edge. You've got Eisenhuth that can play some edge, will likely be 13. You've got Jack DeBellin. You've got Blake Laurie. You've got the 2 Couchman boys. You've got Emre Gula. It is wild times in the forward pack at the Dragons. But with Couchman, he has a terrific PPM of 1, just a tick under 1, a 0.8 in 2023, but over 1 last year, which is what I was thinking of. A very stark comparison between the two, with 11 games last year. There's some chatter around him potentially being able to start. As I said, he moved into a consistent 40-minute role to finish the year. And if that were to be the case, then he probably averages the same, which, doesn't help anyone. Obviously, the dual position is nice. He would need about 50 minutes to make it worthwhile, which I think is a massive risk to say that he gets it. But he's definitely the future. Him and his brother, they've got a lot of older guys, and him and his brother are the 2 cheaper guys probably are right now, younger guys that have the potential to increase their minutes and get into really big, good minute roles, which is what you've seen from guys like Jack DeBellin, Eisenhuth. These guys will get an opportunity at some point to earn those minutes. Will it be this year? I think we'll see an increase at one point, and he'll be of interest to people out there. Jack Williams, 505k, very, very sporadic scoring for Jack. Once I had a look, 59 in 45 minutes all base, right, would be one game, into a 28 in 35 minutes in another game, or a 23 in 44 minutes, right? How you can go 59 in base into 23 in base in the same minutes is just preposterous. Before looking at numbers, it felt to the eye he played really well last year, but didn't transition enough to the regular good stats. Averaging 37.8 is nothing to sneeze at, but it's not winning numbers for NRL Fantasy. If he was to get 51 minutes at the Eels, which seems to be what a lot of guys are getting, I would expect between that 42.4 and 46.8, just looking at his PPM, which is the 2 averages of the past 2 seasons that he's had in the bigger minute roles, which is what I looked at there, the odd time that he did play up a bit. So looking there, that's between 5 and 9 points of value, which, the second part sounds fun, the 9 points of value, but if it's more like 2024, which was 42.4 in that time, or he doesn't hit that 50 minutes, you'll be disappointed. And I'm finding it difficult to get 50 minutes out of him with Hopgood returning. Yes, RCG's gone, but they've got guys that can step in and cover that. And there's guys that didn't even play a lot last year, like Geimer and Whittemore Gregg. And to be honest, guys, this Eels situation and the Knights situation is absolutely wild what's happening right now. But apparently Katoga and Geimer are training on the right edge right now, with Bryce Cartwright not in that situation right now. Sorry, training on the left edge, I believe, with Kelma Tuolangi moving to the right edge next to Moses. If that's the case, that's going to be wild. And we'll obviously get to him in the edge mid-range / cheapy video, which would be good fun as well. But that middle situation isn't as murky waters, I think, as that edge situation at the moment. But I'm expecting more disappointment than excitement with Jack Williams on the minutes and the PPM side of things. Sorensen, we do have to mention, he's got the dual as well. Tough times for him last year. I was expecting him to go 50 plus, and then he got injured like almost every game he played, which is wild. Most likely back to bench middle, it sounds like, with Papali'i and Liam Martin both on the edges, where he averaged 36 and 39 in 2022. So, depending on minutes there, obviously. So many injuries last year for him. As I said, all that chatter around that. There's some chatter around Martin potentially moving to some middle time, which could get Sorensen some middle and some edge, but it's all question marks for now. So you also need to think about Garner as well when thinking of IPAP later as well. So lots of question marks for sure. All right, a more fun one. Tom Gilbert, 500k, the dual position. The price reaction for me on him, it's fair, slash a little undervalued for sure, and likely to be lock again or prop, somewhere in the middle. It's not going to matter too much, except for when you're looking at his last year before he got injured in the early part of 2023, his lock games, he played really well. Think of that. He was a little bit more experienced. He made Origin, so expect those numbers to be a little bit better, and they were, than what it was at prop when he was at the Cowboys. So keep an eye on that. But 7 consistency, 7 confidence on how he goes. 25% upside and downside risk, I think. Could go either way. I'm expecting 37 to 42 out of him. So his price is to tick over 37 right now, or just at 37, and has the dual position. Can he go better? In lock in those 11 games before the 2 tough injuries he's had, and that's the big question you need to look at, is having those tough injuries. He averaged 47.5 in 58.8 minutes. Big average, big minutes. Can he get straight back to that? I'm not sure. If he does, I do expect a 45 average, and probably, just a tiny bit less of the PPM than he had in that 2023 year, just because he's missed so much time. Does he get back to those minutes straight up, or does he go back to 50 with Plath's emergence? He didn't have Plath there, right? He didn't have... Do you have Flegler there? No, Flegler was just last year. Didn't have Flegler there either. So, Jesse Bromwich and these types of guys in the middle. I think he's closer to a 40 guy to begin and probably has 3 to 5 points of value. Is that enough? I don't personally think so. Right now, he's not someone that I'm excited to jump in at from ball one. We'll have to see how he looks in trials, how his PPM's rolling in that 30 minutes or whatever he's going to play in a trial, just to get a bit more of an idea. Does coach come out and say he's going to get more minutes? These types of things we'll have to follow in the rest of the preseason, the next 30 days. The question's going to be, is he a guy you start with, or do you watch and then pounce if you see the right signs? That's Tom Gilbert for me. What's Tom Gilbert for you? Let me know which of these mid-range guys you're excited about jumping in on this season from round one, because as I said, there's going to be a few that do really well and there's going to be a few that do also struggle. All right, we got 2 to go. Joel Fengawe, 490k, 36.7 was his average last year. We do need to first remember that Hopgood is back and Williams comes over with RCG gone, he was playing big minutes, right? So it was the 41 per game last year for Fengawe in terms of minutes. Played 33.6 at prop, is his average in 37 minutes, 34.3 at interchange. So that were the couple of splits, that he's had for the most point. If you do think he gets sort of 47 to 50 minutes, sure, that would be enough in terms of the PPM, right? Because they're, it's a 0.9 sort of PPM there. That would get him somewhere in the 44 to like 46, 47 range, which would be sort of 7 to 10 points of value, which is pretty nice, but he's pretty inconsistent anyway. There's games where he'll, have a sort of 0.8, 0.7 ppm, and then he'll go 1 ppm and do really well. Is he someone at this stage of his career that you want to climb in on? I don't think so, personally, but there's a few people talking about him, and I wanted to give my take as well. All right, it's finally come. I don't know why he's just a mid, but it is Alex Seyfarth. Whew. Let's get excited, team. See how... Actually, someone check this out. By the time... We'll see if I have any ability to change someone's percentage ownership. I've gone all the pros, I've gone all the cons for Seyfarth, I think. That's why I wrote a lot. But let's see if his ownership percentage changes at all after this, because I am excited about Seyfarth. There's plenty of issues that can go wrong, and I will be on to them, that's for sure. I won't have 2 rose-coloured glasses, but 35.6 was his average last year. He hasn't done well a lot of his career, unfortunately. But when he plays on the edge, it's a different story. 475k for him. There are some worries. I think there's plenty of upside. I think I'm going to have him at a 42 to 47 5-round expectation, which is 7 to 11 to 12 points of value fairly comfortably. And that's what most of my expectations are. It's if, one game goes a bit off and then the others go pretty good. But let's get into the numbers. If he doesn't get the edge spot, then it's game over. Move on. If he does, then well. Hello, 51.1 average in 75 minutes. That's 15 points of value, ladies and gents. 15.5. That's 10 games so far. He's had 2 tries in that 10 games, but 39 tackles and 2 misses. 35 in base. He's priced at 35. So that's nice. There are 2 worries. 1, losing his spot and coach changing his mind. Right now, he's training on the right edge. We've seen it in photos, videos, whatever. That could be the issue. And that's the big issue, to be honest. Number 2, less worries for me. He's a hothead, clearly. No sin bins in his edge starts, though, in 10 games. Woohoo, that's a start. Who do they have to take minutes off him is the big question. With Bateman and Papa gone, there's plenty of space. Terrell May comes over as a middle. Royce Hunt comes over as a middle. Is there a reason to play Seyfarth on the edge now? They lose Stefano, so they gain 1 extra middle. Clemmer's on the slowdown. Twali's doing his thing, as always. Edges, though. Edges are the big question. Jack Bird comes over. He could throw his hand up for sure. But coach has already said how much he loves Bird and his skills through the middle. There's going to be 2 youngsters that are in this squad already that we haven't really seen anything of. And then Ruben Porter, who did a good job for a period of time last year. He actually had the spot. And then once they were done with him, I think he copped an injury from memory. Then Seyfarth came in and played the last bunch of games. And that was when, a few people jumped on him and a little bit earlier in the year. But Porter's on a development contract, so there's a lot of questions on that too. He's not even in the top 30. And I almost forgot about him. So thanks to one of the legends in the private group that went, I thought Porter was doing pretty well. And I was like, good one. I'll pop that in the notes there. Seyfarth played edge in 24, 25, 27 with Isaiah Papali'i in the team. So that's something to think about as well. That, is that him moving into Benji moving into round 1 with him as the starting guy? And I think if he is, he'll be in my team as a starter, unless we're expecting him to lose a tremendous amount of minutes. He didn't even play the full 80 in those games. At that PPM, 65 minutes, close to 65 minutes, was still getting close to 10 points of value, which is nice for this type of price. But again, it is mid-range, and it's something that I have mentioned time and time again. Mid-range can kill. But there are going to be 2 mid-rangers, if you pick 5, that are going to do well, 3 out of 5, whatever it is. You could get lucky, you could get unlucky, for sure. But I do think Seyfarth is a guy that has plenty of interest in my book as a guy that I think can do well. Do you think the same? It'll be interesting to see how it looks in terms of ownership percentage after this video, because I'm saying a lot of good stuff in terms of numbers, and that's what you want to look at. Can a guy average close to keeper level numbers as a mid-range player? And it's a yes for Seyfarth, but it's over a short period of time. It's 10 games. It's not the worst, not the best in terms of sample size for you math nerds out there, but has the upside. Doesn't really have the big downside. If he loses his spot pre-round 1, doesn't matter, you change him. If he loses his spot during the first bunch of rounds, you trade him. If he's got the spot, he has the upside, and that's where I'm looking at it. There's definitely some downside on minutes and things like that. But if it all goes well, then it's awesome, astronomical. If it doesn't, you move on, right? So there you go. Thanks so much, guys. Subscribe, like the video if you want. Comment. Love to see your comments down there. I can engage with you there. But for my mid-best rankings, as you saw with the last one, and the hookers, consider joining the private group. I appreciate you guys supporting me by watching or listening. If you want to support further, that's the best way to do it. And it should help you enjoy your fantasy season and Supercoach season so much more. Like-minded guys, prizes, help from me, all the good stuff, meetups, everything. So check the description for all that information. League code as well, JBFA Overall, is in there also. Thanks so much for joining me for the mid-priced video. 450 odd K to 50 average. Good stuff. Cash cows are coming out next. Hope you enjoyed it. See you later.